The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, we're just gonna give it a few more minutes to just let everyone trickle through. It's only 10:58, but if you don't mind letting me know if you're able to hear me okay, you should have like a little questions or chat box in your panel. That would be awesome. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. Thank you. If you're just joining us, welcome to the webinar. I'm just going to give it another minute or two before we get started. So thank you for waiting. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, welcome to Onlife Health's webinar series, presented in conjunction with HealthTrust Slice of Life program. We're your hosts, Olivia Rowe and Ashley Benningfield.
Olivia is from a small town of Pennsylvania, just outside Williamsport, the home of the Little League World Series. She graduated from Ithaca College in 2013 with a degree in television radio communications and a concentration in screenwriting. Previously, she's worked as a writing assistant in LA and was an editor of a local newspaper in Pennsylvania. Prior to joining OnLife in January of 2019, she worked at Pop Culture Media, an entertainment news website under CBS Interactive. Olivia currently serves as the manager of content and digital media. Just a few fun facts about her. She loves going hiking, listening to podcasts, and spends much of her free time writing fiction and watching documentaries. Olivia considers herself a news junkie who's obsessed with pop culture trivia.
Ashley is originally from Germantown, Tennessee, right outside of Memphis. She graduated from UT Knoxville in 2004 with a bachelor's degree in dietetics. From there, she went on to complete her dietetic internship at Vanderbilt in Nashville. Ashley is a registered dietitian technician, and she's been at OnLife for 14 years. She's held several positions throughout her tenure on Life, and right now she serves as our content and digital media specialist. A few fun facts about Ashley. Onlife Health is the only place she's ever worked. She loves cleaning and organizing, working out, and spending time with her husband and her 7-year-old son. She's also a huge Jason Aldean fan.
So for those of you that have joined us before, welcome back. And for those of you who may not have had the chance to join us, welcome. We look forward to interacting with everyone today.
So today's webinar is called Don't Worry, Be Happy, the Keys to Living a Full Life. So just before we get started, a couple notes about the webinar. It's being recorded in a listen-only mode, so you'll be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. But you have that nice little questions and chat box that you're able to type in whenever you want if you're having any issues. And I will periodically throughout the webinar kind of be checking in there. And the last 10 to 15 minutes of the webinar have been set aside specifically for a Q&A. And we'll try to answer as many of those questions as possible during the Q&A portion of the webinar today. And then another note is, just like last time, Ashley and I, are working from home separately. So I think last time the audio and everything went smoothly, but in case there are any issues today, we really appreciate your patience, and please let us know if you're having any issues. So without further ado, let's get started.
Happiness. For 30 years, scientists have been studying it. The United Nations named an official day after it, and Google Analytics prove people are searching for it. We are wealthier, more educated, and live longer than any previous generation. As a nation, the US is one of the wealthiest, most powerful, most technologically advanced. But despite all of that, in the most recent World Happiness Report, the United States ranked 18th. We've been taught that hard work equals success, which equals happiness, right? Wrong. Research proves that happiness actually comes before success, not the other way around. Neuroscience proves that we are hardwired to perform at our best when we are happy. How you feel and your attitude toward life all stem from your thoughts, actions, and where you focus your time and energy. Yet we're constantly surrounded by negativity. If we want things to change, we have to create the change, and we start by choosing positivity and happiness. Imagine what the world would be like with more optimistic, compassionate, and positive people. Kind of like a pebble thrown into a pond. It only takes one to create the ripple of happiness. Happiness is so contagious and infectious that one positive person can spread happiness to 1,000 people. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss what happiness is and what it is not. We'll talk about the science of happiness and how happiness, or a lack thereof, can affect your health. And most importantly, we'll talk about how to find happiness in the midst of a pandemic. We'll give you some strategies for cultivating happiness, and our goal today is that you learn at least one way you can start creating that ripple of happiness. In addition to the strategies, we'll provide you with a few apps and a list of resources after the presentation. And finally, as always, we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A.
So we'd like to start off by asking you a question. What does happiness mean to you? What are the components of your own happiness? Is it your family, your job, having security? Go ahead and type your responses in the chat box. Okay, Linda said her daughter. Stephen said family. Kimberly said job security, family, health, being stress-free, retirement, my successful children and grandchildren, peace of mind, feeling good about your life, happiness is to be with my family and friends, consistency in life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, my faith. Yeah, these are all like really great answers. Family, good health, work-life balance, finding the good in each day. That's a really good one. So we're going to talk about a lot of these today, including kind of these overarching topics like family time, but then also a little bit more on kind of what James said about like finding the good in each day, kind of no matter what's going on. So these are all really good answers, and we're going to talk about a lot of these today. So during our research for the presentation, we came across this information from Happify.com. We really love the format that the author used to portray the details, and we wanted to share it with you. So some of this does come from a poll that was conducted back in 2008. So just note that a lot of these stats were before the pandemic. So let's just take a quick look at happiness by the numbers. 1 is the distance in miles in which to keep close friends within. So that's probably easier said than done. But when a friend or a sibling who lives less than a mile from you is extra cheerful or becomes happy, your chance of getting happier actually increases by 25%. And additionally, your increase in happiness will be about the same if you live with a spouse or a partner who is also happy. Good feelings really do rub off, so keep your friends closer and your happiest friends even closer.
And I can actually personally speak to this. I typically do a social distance walk with my neighbor. And if I'm feeling down and we start talking about something that either she herself or someone has experienced that's good or joyful, my attitude and demeanor immediately change just from being around her.
So then we have 5, which is the number of positive interactions happy couples have for every negative one. So when looking at couples that stay together versus those who divorce or split up, research has found that the ones who are in happy relationships had a 5-to-1 ratio of good exchanges to bad ones. And people who ultimately split up had just 0.8 happy encounters for every negative one. And then 6 or 7 hours per day of socializing leads to the highest levels of happiness. And this is one of the stats that was conducted in 2008, so it's definitely pre-coronavirus. But regardless, the numbers show that people who regularly spend about a quarter of their hours every day with family and friends are about 12 times as likely to be joyful rather than feeling depressed or anxious. And it was also found that people are happiest on weekends, probably due in part to the amount of time spent with loved ones on those days. 10 is the number of friends it takes to give your well-being a big boost. A 2012 survey of thousands of adults found that having regular contact with 10 or more friends had a big impact on someone's happiness level. People who have fewer friends reported lower levels of happiness. And then in addition to improving your mood, having a big social network is linked to all kinds of other positive health factors, including a longer life. And when we engage in these kinds of social relationships, our bodies actually release chemicals that can reduce anxiety and increase your concentration and focus. And then we have 33, 55, and 70. And these numbers all have one thing in common. They've been deemed the happiest ages according to different research. So scientists think that age 33 scored big because it's a time when people tend to have energy, wisdom, and money all at once. And then in another study, it found that people in their mid-50s tend to smile the most. And in a third study, found that people's happiness is lowest around age 44, but then it kind of starts to build gradually until it peaks in the 70s. So then what's the moral here? While many scientists agree that overall we get happier with age, there's really no such thing as a happiest age. The number 40 is the approximate percentage of your happiness that is truly up to you. Now, it's oversimplifying to say that every single person can control exactly 40% of their own happiness. But scientists think that your happiness level is a result of an interaction between your genes, your behaviors, and your circumstances. So while each person has a genetic set point for happiness, kind of like we do for weight, a big chunk of how you feel is under your control. So what does that mean? It means that the way you spend your time and the thoughts you allow to linger can really impact your mood and your long-term happiness. And finally, $75,000 is the annual salary it takes to put a smile on the average person's face. Does making or having more money truly make us happier? Well, to a certain extent. A recent study from Princeton found that once your salary hits that $75,000, Making more money won't have much of an effect on your day-to-day happiness. People who bring home less than that usually have undergone more hardships like divorce or illness, while those that earned higher than that usually report more satisfaction with their lives. So it's not that you need to make $75,000 a year, be a social butterfly, or move to the same neighborhood as your happiest friend. The point is that you can seek more positive interactions and take action to change the way you feel, regardless of your life circumstances. And throughout the rest of this webinar, we hope you can find a strategy you can start using to help you do that.
So for centuries, people have wrestled with the true definition of happiness. And today, happiness means many different things to different people. But before we get into what science says about happiness, possibly the best place to start defining happiness is by defining what it is not. So happiness is not feeling good all the time. Almost all happy people will experience sadness at some point in their lives. Researchers have found that humans have a baseline level or a set point level of happiness, and we all have different set points. This baseline is our general level of happiness, and no matter what happens to us, whether it's good or bad, we will come back to that set point. You may experience an unhappy life event, and your happiness level will shift below your set point. And when you experience positive or exciting events, your happiness level will boost above your set point. But regardless, sooner or later, when that life event finishes, your happiness level will return to its baseline level. And research also suggests that an even-keeled mood is more psychologically healthy than a mood in which you achieve great heights of happiness on a regular basis. In fact, if you focus too much on trying to feel good all the time, you'll actually undermine your ability to feel good at all. Next, happiness is not being rich. While living below the poverty line certainly makes it hard to be happy, beyond that, money does not appear to buy happiness. Imagine you unexpectedly get a $10,000 a year raise. While you would certainly be excited in the short term, it would only be a matter of time before your expectations change to fit your new budget. Before you know it, you're just as happy as you were before the raise. This holds true for new houses, new cars, new gadgets, and all the other material goods that people spend so much time pining for. However, there is one exception. If you spend your extra money on experiences with people, for example, if you spend it on some weekend getaways to new and exciting places with your friends or family, then you might get happier. However, this is rarely how people choose to spend their money. Happiness is not a final destination. The old saying, "Are we there yet?" is often applied to discussions of happiness, as if a person works towards happiness and one day just arrives. For example, many people still view happiness as a destination to arrive at after they've achieved certain high points, like that big salary or marrying the right person or having kids. Contrary to popular belief, unless you're one of the few who win the genetic lottery and you're naturally happy, it takes regular effort to maintain happiness. Most established techniques for becoming happier, like keeping a gratitude journal, are habits, not one-shot events. And most life events in the short term, like getting married or being promoted, they fade over time as we adapt to them. And finally, happiness is not chasing pleasure. In the American culture particularly, there's often a misunderstanding that happiness comes from experiencing pleasure. For example, having fun at a party or the excitement of a new experience. While these are all wonderful experiences to be cherished, they're not happiness. Instead, they are pleasure. They are experiences to have and let pass, a meal to savor and then digest, and a party to enjoy and then let wind down. If we have these joyful experiences, our brains adapt and turn pleasure to routine. And then once that happens, it takes even more to make us feel good again.
So if happiness is not the same thing as pleasure, then what is it? So it's kind of like an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on your circumstances. Most people in life are used to being happier because I'll be happier when I get married, get a better job. I'd just be so much happier if I could get a few weeks at home. And now look, are people truly happier? It's kind of always something that seems to be outside of us. But happiness is really just when your life fulfills your needs. So in other words, it comes when you feel satisfied and fulfilled. It's a feeling of contentment that life is just as it should be. Research suggests that happiness is just a combination of how satisfied you are with your life and how good you feel on a day-to-day basis. Both of those are relatively stable usually. That is, our life changes and our mood fluctuates, but our general happiness is more genetically determined than anything else. The good news is that with consistent effort, this can sort of be offset. Think of it kind of how you would think about losing weight. If you eat how you want to and are as active as you want to be, your body will kind of settle at a certain weight. But if you eat certain things differently or you exercise more, your weight will adjust accordingly. And if that new diet or exercise regimen becomes part of your everyday life, then you'll stay at this new weight. And if you go back to eating and exercising the way you used to, your weight will return to where it started. And this kind of goes along with happiness. You have the ability to control how you feel, and with consistent practice, you can form habits for a more satisfying and fulfilling life.
So for decades, psychology has largely focused on addressing the negative, investigating what was wrong with us, or relieving suffering from depression or trauma and addictions. But over the last decade, we've seen a significant shift. Scientists are now turning their attention to what makes people thrive. What thoughts, actions, and behaviors make us more productive at work, makes us happier in our relationships, and more fulfilled at the end of the day? That's the focus of the field of positive psychology, often referred to as the science of happiness. Its goal is to investigate what makes us flourish. Now, positive psychology doesn't turn a blind eye to suffering or psychological illness, but it does encourage us to adopt practices that can boost optimism, increase resilience, and live happy, engaged lives. So let's take a quick look at what makes up our happiness. And keep in mind that while these numbers vary from person to person, they are approximate. So only 10% of our happiness is controlled by our circumstances. You might be thinking they played a much larger role in our happiness. And like Olivia alluded to earlier, our general happiness is determined mostly by genetics. And as you can see here, 50% is biologically determined. It's in our DNA. So then where does that leave the other 40%? 40% of our happiness is controlled by our thoughts, behavior, and actions. And guess what? Those are the things we can do the most about to shift that baseline and set point we referenced earlier. Happiness is a skill that you can build with consistent practice. You have the ability to control how fulfilling your life is.
So happiness has no real universal definition because we all define it differently. So then how can we measure it if it means different things to different people? Well, measuring happiness can be tricky, and there are actually a lot of opinions on whether or not you can even measure it. But researchers and scientists have attempted to measure happiness with a few different approaches. So the first approach is biological, and that looks specifically at genetic markers of happiness. Genetic samples can be taken from participants so that the changes in neurotransmitters and hormones can be studied. And you can also measure happiness by looking at different behaviors. So like obvious behaviors like smiling and laughing can be used to estimate happiness. And then other behaviors include gratitude, acts of kindness, generosity, and appreciation. And they've been found to positively correlate with our well-being. When hundreds of tweets are analyzed, researchers find that Mondays are linked to low levels of happiness, and daylight savings time results in happiness boosts. And then self-reports are the most common way that researchers assess happiness. People think about their happiness, and it's a subjective state, so it makes sense to ask them about it. But this kind of approach presents some issues. So, for example, when people were asked, looking back at your life as a whole, overall, how happy are you? The answers they gave changed if they found a few coins at a photocopy machine that scientists had planted there. So now finding a few coins shouldn't really have a big impact on your happiness when you look at the decades of your life. But weirdly, it does change the answers that people give. So that shows that we're kind of overly impacted by the most recent events of our lives. And then other reports include asking others to rate a person's happiness. So, for example, for young children, we might ask their parents and their teachers to rate their happiness.
So let's move on to happiness and how it affects your health. Happier is healthier, and for most people, a positive attitude translates to a variety of effects on their health, both physically and mentally. Happier people are more resilient and more creative. They tend to have a lower heart rate and a reduced risk for cardiovascular disease. In addition, happier people have lower levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and they recover faster from injuries. Happier people have stronger immune systems. In fact, they're 1/3 less likely to get sick. And if they do get sick, they have 50% more immunoglobulins to be able to recover from a virus. So there's evidence that positive moods can boost our immune system and protect us from respiratory viruses. Finally, happiness enables better sleeping and eating habits, and overall increases the longevity of life. And on average, happier people live 7 to 9 years longer.
But it doesn't end there. Happiness isn't just about you. Here are a few ways that happy people affect other people. They have more friends. Happy people are just more fun to be around. Our social relationships are really important. It's the warm, caring, true friendships that provide a stabilizing support system. Good friends are usually inspiring, motivational, and validating, and they boost our sense of belonging. Happier people have deeper connections and conversations with others. And when we participate in these relationships, our bodies release chemicals that reduce anxiety. They help others and volunteer more. A happy person is a helpful one. Studies show that happy people are more likely to volunteer, and in turn, those people become happier. When you're in a positive emotional state, you're better able to help others in need. So like your family, your friends, and even strangers, and better able to make a difference in the world. Happier people are also more likely to donate to charity. Happy people smile more. Smiling is beneficial to our health. It lowers stress hormones and blood pressure. And research has found that those people who smile more are typically more generous and trustworthy. And then finally, happy people are contagious. Have you ever walked into a room where everyone else has negative energy, but you feel on top of the world? A few minutes in, you're standing there just noticing the bad mood flow. That same thing goes with happy energy. It's contagious. We affect one another. So if you want others to be happy, it's good to express your happiness around them.
So now, how can we find happiness amid a pandemic? Well, according to a COVID response study that was conducted back in late May, Americans are the unhappiest they've been in 50 years. In fact, only 14% of respondents said they were very happy, and that's down 31% from the same period back in 2018. Work is different, our social lives have come to a halt, fear and uncertainty are rampant. Many of us are working from home while taking on new roles and responsibilities, and there is a newfound stress that's ever present. So how are we supposed to be happy during a time like this? You may be wondering why we're even talking about happiness right now. You may think the idea of cultivating personal happiness seems trivial and selfish, and you may even feel guilty talking about it when there is so much negativity in this world. But the idea of cultivating personal happiness is actually more important now than ever before. The truth is that despite any anxiety and depression that may be removing any sense of optimism from the day, you can find hope in the midst of a pandemic. With some intentional effort, you can learn and practice several skills that will boost your sense of confidence and help you build emotional flexibility so you can handle instability. First, focus on what you can control. While you can't control your feelings, thoughts, or the actions of others, you're not powerless. Shifting your attention toward these aspects of life that you can control can help restore your sense of urgency and self-confidence. Things in your control can be as simple as your daily and nightly, what you eat and what you wear each day. They can also be as profound as how you speak to yourself, how you will pursue your beliefs and goals, and how you'll respond under pressure. Whether they be big or small, mundane or extraordinary, challenge yourself to make a list of all the things within your control. Limit your media intake. In order to get ahead of the virus and be up to date on the CDC's recommendations, you may be glued to your phone, the TV, or computer. Of course, we all want information and guidance on what we can do to keep ourselves and our families safe, but the amount of information can be a double-edged sword. Surrounding yourself with the infection rate statistics and stories of hospitals being short on medical supplies can take its toll. And if that's 100% of the information in our head, that's 100% of the truth to you. Limiting how much time you spend watching the news, listening to the radio, and scrolling through social media can help restore a sense of normalcy while reducing your sense of dread. This doesn't mean putting your head in the sand, but being knowledgeable and respectful of your own emotional and psychological limits. Next, invest in the uplifting. Surround yourself with uplifting media, people, activities, and thoughts. This can help encourage a more optimistic and joyful mindset, even in the face of stress. For many, this can be difficult, and you should not expect to magically change your thoughts and feelings. But the more you see, think, and do that reflects peace, happiness, and positivity, the more it can influence your mood and outlook. And finally, whatever you're feeling right now, it's okay. It's valid. While many are experiencing negative emotions like fear, anxiety, boredom, and anger, some are feeling positive ones, and that's a-okay. For example, a positive emotion I've been feeling is joy. Being stuck at home hasn't been so bad. I do love cleaning and organizing, so being at home has allowed me to accomplish a lot of projects that I typically would have kept on the back burner because I just never had time.
So for me, I would say the pandemic has really, I would say, affected me more in the beginning than it does now. I live alone and I'm prone to like depression. So I would say in the beginning it was really hard, and I'm definitely someone who is addicted to the news, and it's something that I've talked to my therapist a lot about. There's actually this phenomenon it's called dooms scrolling, and that is really just what Ashley was talking about how like beyond what you need to know about the news, it's kind of addicting to just like want to know everything possible that's going on. And at a certain point, you basically just like stop helping yourself and really are just harming yourself because you're taking in all this information beyond really what you just need to know. So for me, being able to limit that was a really big help. And actually, I worked with my therapist on kind of just setting a time limit that I would, so like for example, I would allow myself to get on Twitter to read the news for about like 15 minutes a day, and I would make sure that that was usually towards the middle of the day. Especially kind of reading that stuff before you go to bed can really be disruptive. So I would say ever since I started doing that, I felt a lot better. So it just kind of goes to show that like little things like that can really have like such a big impact on your mood and how you feel. So
yeah, thank you for sharing that. So now more than ever, it's important to find joy. And on the next couple of slides, we're going to address ways to do that.
Okay, so excuse me. Research shows that you can genuinely increase your happiness, and it doesn't take something insane like winning the lottery. But it does require kind of an inner perspective and attitude change. So here are some tips to help you cultivate happiness. So one of them is by experiencing nature. So right now, especially if you live in kind of a more urban or city setting, you may have to work a little bit harder to access nature, especially because some county and state parks are so close. But if you are able to put that extra effort in, you'll be happy that you did. Exposure to natural environments has been linked with better general health and less stress, and is associated with our brains relaxing more. And if you're not able to get outside like that, simply looking at photos of natural environments like that of a beach or a mountain can have similar effects. So an example of that might be saving a picture of the ocean or sandy beach to your computer background. And the next, decluttering your space. A lot of people feel more inner calm and happiness when their outer surroundings are more clutter-free. And for some, it might be hard to declutter now with more people at home, but even the slightest bit of cleaning up can help give you a sense of control over your life. So like making your bed, for instance, actually can make you feel better. I know Ashley has used a lot of this quarantine time to declutter things in her house, drawers, closets, the garage. I don't really enjoy cleaning like Ashley does, but I do find that having a clean space really makes me feel a lot better. So even though it's not something I enjoy, I try to make an effort. And then improving your social relationships. So stay connected and nurture them. This might be obvious, but it's one of the most powerful ways to be happy. And did you know that the biggest difference between people who are usually happy and those who are not is their social relationships? So, in particular, the happiest people on average tend to spend about 70% of the time surrounded by others, and less happy people only spend about 35% of the time connected with other people. And this can be hard, especially right now. And if you live alone, that can also be a little tricky. I spend a lot of time on Zoom calls and on the phone, and I find that's pretty helpful. And then being kind to others, care for and help people. Often we think that altruism means sacrificing our own happiness in order to benefit someone else, but it's not really a zero-sum game. And when you help someone, you usually feel happier as a result. And if you need inspiration, the pandemic has actually triggered a pandemic of kindness of sorts. If you go on social media and type hashtag COVID kindness, you'll be amazed at some of the smart ways humans are being kind to each other in these times.
So continuing on, meditation. Even taking 5 minutes to meditate and slow down can help you foster inner joy. Meditation increases the feel-good neurochemicals as it reduces stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. Practice self-care, especially physical exercise. One of the first steps in boosting happiness is to take care of your body. Your physical will influence your emotional experience. Whether it's light yoga or taking a quick walk, research shows that just 12 minutes is sufficient to create an upbeat and happy mood. Listening to music call positive memories and help you escape the day-to-day difficulties you may be facing. Music can provide an instant boost to your mood while you're working, cleaning, or even just hanging out at home. In addition to being a mood booster, research shows that listening to music can reduce anxiety, lower blood pressure, and improve sleep quality. Next, find the all moment in every day. All is the concept of experiencing wonder and amazement. And you might think of this as something as being big, like snorkeling the Great Barrier Reef or seeing the Eiffel Tower in Paris. But researchers are finding the opposite. If we take the time to notice small, pleasurable moments every day, we can reap the same benefits of those big all moments. And for example, this is like watching the sunrise or set, or seeing something new and beautiful along your hiking path. Doing this allows you to feel more connected to the world and experience more joy in the day-to-day. And I know for me, this pandemic has made me realize that there are things around me that I took for granted. And now I want to take the time to notice them and relish them in their place in the world.
Yeah, so for me, it's really hot here in Nashville, so I tend to take my walk later in the day. But one of the other reasons I like to do that is it kind of allows me to see the sunset. And I just really like that. I find it to be very calming and kind of a reminder that there are those things that stay the same. Like a sunset even during times like these. But it's also just nice to experience something like that happens every day, but it still never stops being really cool to see.
Yeah, and so two that we'll touch on are practicing gratitude and changing our thoughts. And we're going to dig a little deeper into these two strategies on the next couple of slides.
So practicing gratitude is another way to generate happiness. For most people, negative thoughts kind of come naturally, and it requires a conscious effort to think positively. And one of the easiest ways you can learn to focus on the positive is by practicing gratitude. So that means more than saying thank you to a friend for a favor, it's saying thanks for everything that's important to you and good in your life. So, for example, while you may be thankful for a gift you received, you're also thankful that you can watch a beautiful sunset, play a sport that you love, or just simply be alive. When you practice gratitude, everything about your life and your experiences is seen as a gift. Now, here are a few easy ways to express gratitude. Spend a few minutes at the end of each day writing down what you're grateful for. That can be a person, an event, an experience that had a positive impact on you. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can really be as simple as, I'm grateful for the fresh fruit I was able to eat today. And doing that will help kind of bring your circumstances into perspective and create joy. You can also call, email, or text someone just to say thanks. Give thanks before a meal in difficult times, or when you're feeling ill and burdened by health concerns, give thanks for the abilities that you still have. Be creative. Plan a garden of gratitude or take pictures for all that you're grateful for and make them visible to your eye.
And the last strategy, your thoughts. Negative thoughts can make you feel sad and anxious. They take the joy out of life and they can take a toll on your physical health. And that's why it's so important to learn how to deal with them. So to help you see the brighter side of life, we want a few tips. First, focus on what you're feeling right now. If you're sad, feel the sadness, but don't tell yourself that you have always felt this way and that you're doomed to feel sad forever. Sadness passes and a negative thought can linger until you look. Share your feelings with someone close to you. Everyone has negative thoughts from time to time. Talking about it with someone else can help you keep those thoughts in perspective. Do something nice for yourself. Maybe you could work less today and play with your kids more, or you could find something that makes you laugh. And take time to count your blessings. There are so many things for each of us to be thankful for. What's one thing that you appreciate? So do you have any negative thoughts right now? Sometimes it's hard to even know. Take a minute, listen to your thoughts, and see if you do. If you're telling yourself something that makes you feel bad, remember, you are in charge of what you tell yourself. So why not come up with something more encouraging? No matter what difficulties we may be facing right now, whether it be personally or collectively, joy can be achieved by making some easy modifications to our daily lives.
So there are actually a few science-based apps that measure happiness, and we just kind of wanted to go over them because they seem pretty cool. So the first one is called Happify, and this app tries to increase happiness through fun science-based activities and games. And to start, you're kind of presented with a questionnaire, which includes questions about the smallest details in your life. And then based on the responses that you give, Happify scores your happiness, and it gives you a series of tracks to help you better manage stress, shift the way you think, and focus more on the positive things in your life. And if you're more socially minded, there's even a community page with inspirational comments from other users. And you can even brighten someone else's day by adding your own comments. So about 86% of the users reported feeling better about their lives after just 2 months of using it. They felt more motivated and productive and indicated that it helps people to solidify positive habits that are the framework for a happier life. So Happify is available via your web browser and also through the app for iOS and Android users. So the next one is called Super Better. A key part of building happiness is developing resilience, and this app tries to help people do that. Its focuses on helping people develop the ability to stay strong and positive despite any challenges that life throws at them. Super Better brings out your heroic strengths and gives you a better mindset, promotes personal growth as a result of stress and change. It actually capitalizes on making a game out of tracking daily activities and behaviors. A point system is used, and the more steps you complete, so for example, taking a walk or drinking a glass of water, the more points you earn. And you can even be like a superhero if that's what engages you. You can collect power-ups, win against bad guys, and get help from friends and allies. So one study found that people who played this for 30 days had improved mood, less symptoms of anxiety and depression, and stronger self-belief. And this app is also available on the web and iOS and Android. So the last app, it works by helping you be more present and positive throughout the day. It kind of acts as like a gratitude journal. Each day, you're prompted to write what you're most grateful for. That can be something like the sun shining, a moment you spent with your friends or family, and even like getting your favorite ice cream or something. And you can even add pictures. So this allows you to create, collect, and even share those tiny moments and then revisit them later when you're feeling down. You can also use the app as a social media platform. You can connect to those around you if you want and get inspired by their gratitude posts. Happier urges you to think of happiness not like a feeling, but more like a muscle to be trained, which you can rely on your day-to-day life. The app currently actually has over 1 million members, and it's only available right now to iOS users and can be used on an Apple Watch. So, of course, using these happiness apps alone won't be enough to change your life, but still, there's science to back up the claims behind them. And actually, an analysis of 51 positive interventions like mindfulness activities, gratitude writing, and goal setting found them to be significantly enhancing well-being and decreasing depressive symptoms. So more specifically, one of the main ideas behind most of these apps, counting your blessings, has been proven to make you happier.
So be sure to log into your secure account on HealthTrust Secure Enrollee portal and click the Onlife Health button. And there you can find lots of resources related to today's topic. Also, for your reference, we provided a list of organizations and their websites that contain information on happiness. We've made this information available in a handout, and you can access this document via the control panel, and then from there you can download it. But if you have trouble accessing the document, feel free to email Olivia. Her email address will be listed on the follow-up email that you'll be receiving, and it should also be listed on previous emails that you've received related to this webinar. So now we want to hear from you. What's one new thing that you learned? You can type your responses in the chat box in the window panel, and feel free to also ask us any questions, and we'll do our best to answer those.
Yeah, so we're gonna, we love to hear from you, and we're also just gonna make this a general question and answer session. So feel free to pop your comments in there. We will take a look at them. Someone said they learned that 50% of happiness is in their DNA. Yeah, that was really interesting for me to learn too. I didn't realize that the number was so high. But it does explain a lot, especially when you consider that there seems to be like a pretty good genetic component to things like anxiety and depression. So that was really interesting. Lauren said this has been very helpful. Good. Yeah, we're glad it was helpful. We really enjoyed learning a lot about this stuff as we were putting it together.
Yes, someone said, I really learned how important socialization is. And even though I know sometimes it's hard during this specific time, but yes, very, very important.
Someone said limiting media time. I definitely have been trying to do that without really thinking about how it ties into my happiness. Yeah, I think that's like something that has a big impact on us, but we just don't really realize it. I think that more and more research is being done on this, especially more specific to younger people, but limiting your news and social media intake, I find, has like such a big impact on the way that people feel. Ella said, I'm so excited about the apps you listed. I'm going to download all 3. Thank you. I really have been needing something like this. Yeah, I thought Ashley was the one who found the information on the apps, and I actually am thinking about downloading a couple of them myself. They seem really cool.
So I wanted to mention one thing about the sleeping and looking at media. During the research, I was listening to this podcast about it, and this lady said that your happiness level today depends on your quality of sleep last night than it does on your income level or marital status. Sleep is key. It's not just the amount, but the quality of sleep. And it says the worst thing that you can do is read the news or watch TV. You may notice it, you may not notice it, but your sleep will be more agitated. So instead, do more positive things before you go to sleep, like a gratitude journal. So it just goes back to what Olivia was saying, limiting looking at it at night because it will disrupt your sleep.
Oh, Bernadette said, I'd be interested in learning more about how pets can impact self-happiness and the happiness of others. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, maybe we should have talked about that, but yeah, it's been interesting. I am not allowed to have pets in my apartment, unfortunately, but I do have some friends who have gotten pets during the pandemic and their mood has just like completely turned around. So I'm sure that it has such a big impact on the way that you feel. Actually, you have a dog. I mean, I'm sure that
I
like it's
do.
been really
I have a
helpful.
Yorkie. Yeah, she's the best thing in the world outside of my son and husband, of course. But um, yeah, she's 12. She's Yorkie, 6 pounds, best thing ever. So I can't imagine life without her. And she does bring so much joy every day.
Amy said, I liked most how you showed how to differentiate between happiness and pleasure and to be conscious of this. Yeah, it is really interesting. Pleasure seems to be such like a sort of very specific moment in time related to certain things, and happiness is more of a long-term concerted effort that you kind of have to make. James said, practicing gratitude is very helpful. I do this with my life sometimes. Yeah, it certainly, I used to be pretty good at it. I would do like a gratitude journal every night. I haven't been great about it lately, but it's definitely something that I found to be helpful when I was doing it. Oh, actually, Colleen says she loves the part about decluttering.
Oh, sometimes I feel like people think I might be crazy, but I love to, I'm always finding something to clean out and I'll reorganize it 1,000 times, but it just relieves a lot of my anxiety that has to do with clutter. So it's fantastic.
Allison, thank you for the resources. You're very welcome. And just to reiterate, the handout with the resources should be in your control panel, but if they're not, you can email me. And tomorrow, I think tomorrow everyone will get a follow-up email and there'll be a recording of the webinar attached, so you can rewatch it whenever you want. I think there were a couple of small issues with the audio cutting in and out, but overall I think it went pretty well. So I'm sorry if you happen to experience any of those. But I don't think it shouldn't have been too disruptive. Someone said it makes me feel good that a lot of strategies that you have been shared are what I do. Yeah. Ruth said COVID is making social interaction very difficult. Yes, I agree with that. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of Zoom calls and phone calls, and it's obviously not quite the same. There's really nothing like in-person interaction and being able to like physically hug someone. That's really hard. For me, I try to do like social distance activities with like my friends that I know are lucky to not really have a ton of contact with other people. So when it's nice out, we'll do like a social distance walk with our masks
Mm-hmm.
on, or we'll do like a picnic in an area where there's really not any other people. Um, Trying to like do things like that can be challenging to like figure out and organize, and they're kind of dependent on the weather, but it is something that I have found to be helpful. Actually, you said you go on walks with your friends, right?
Yes. Well, it's been so hot lately that we haven't. Now that school is back in session for some people, it's been harder. But yes, we would go once a day for like 45 minutes, and it
Oh,
was nice. I said, just if I was feeling down or something, and I go outside and see, it just makes a big difference because what she's saying to me and what she's telling me that she might have experienced that day or her family, it just makes it better to be able to hear someone, just get a fresh face, so.
Catherine said she's doing okay, but she has friends who are really suffering. Do you think medication can be warranted at times? Yeah, so obviously we're not experts or doctors, but certainly medication can be helpful for some people who are dealing with kind of like a deeper, um, kind of sadness or struggling. So for sure, I would encourage, if you're able to talk to your friends about, seeing someone about that. I think there can be a lot of anxiety about going to the doctor and stuff at this time, but there are a lot of really great like telemedicine options and telehealth options. A lot of providers are doing those kinds of visits now, so that people are still able to get care. So I think if you're able to encourage your friend to do that, if you think it would be helpful to them, I think that would be a great idea. Someone asked, are any of the happiness apps geared towards school age kids? I'm actually not sure about that, if they have, like, if they're more for adults, but we can certainly look
I
into
can,
that
yeah.
for you. What'd you say, Ashley?
I said I'd be happy to look into that.
Yeah, because I think for sure it would be good, because obviously kids or like younger adults are using a lot of like technology and stuff. So I think it would be really cool if it was. So we will look into that for you. Someone asked specifically about getting credit automatically for attending the webinar. Ashley and I don't deal directly with that part of it, but as far as my knowledge goes, if you attended the webinar, like you are here right now, you automatically get credit. We have like a list of attendees, and we send that to the correct person. So the answer should be yes. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and we will get you to the right person that you talk to. Are these apps free? Yes, some of them are. There are kind of like paid versions. Like one of them, I can't remember which one. I want to say the first one, Happify. That one puts you on different tracks that are geared more towards you. And if you pay more, you can get kind of more tracks. But as far as I know, like most of them have like at least a free version. Cheryl said, this webinar made me ponder, do we find happiness or does happiness find us? That is a really great philosophical question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. That's a good question though. I am up most nights. That is an area I need most help. Yeah, Stephen, I don't know if you attended our last webinar, but we talked about sleep a lot. We do have a link to that webinar, so if you would like it, I can definitely send it to you to watch. Because I think that's an area that's impacting a lot of people is sleep. Any ideas on getting your spouse to limit his news watching? Ooh, that's hard.
Oh my gosh. My husband was so bad when this first all started. It was terrible. But he gradually just started figuring out that it's not the best thing to do. But as far as strategies for that, about the webinar that you listened to with all these strategies to maybe implement.
Yeah, maybe share the webinar with him.
Yeah.
I think also, I obviously don't know if you've had a conversation about it, but there's also probably a lot of research. Like, I don't know if statistics would help. Some people find that helpful. But if you're able to present any like statistics to show him like how much that impacts someone, we can share those with you too, if that would be helpful. That is really hard though. But yeah, I will follow up with you to see if we can help you any more on that. But Richard said ice cream. Yeah, I mean, I love ice cream. I get it at least 3 times a week, so I agree with that. Someone said mindfulness has really helped me. Yeah, that seems to be really beneficial. I wish I was better at practicing that. A couple of you said you'd like that webinar to sleep. I think this recording sort of, I'm able to later see your email addresses, so I can definitely send that to you. So I will follow up with you later. I think there are a handful of you so far that have asked me for it, so I will send that to you so you're able to look at it. Okay, I think that is about all of our time. If there's anyone we didn't get to and you have questions or comments, feel free to email me. My email address, I'm Olivia again. My email address was on the reminder emails that you got. It'll be on the follow-up email that you'll receive. Again, everyone will get a recording of this. And those of you who I've said I will follow up with or have asked me for anything, I will send you an email hopefully by the end of the week. You definitely should hear from me by Friday. So look out for that. Otherwise, we really appreciate you joining us today. And our next webinar is in November, and that is on setting health goals and achieving them. So there are more details about that are coming soon. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.
See ya.